What's good, everybody? So this is round two of why people think that Prime Shaq versus Jokic is not even a matchup. What I mean by prime, I mean when Shaq was good. Obviously, you could say he hit his peak when he was with the Lakers, right? We saw what he did in Orlando. He somewhat tried to carry that team to the NBA Finals, just ran into Michael Jordan too much. And when he did it, run into Michael Jordan, he got demolished by the Rockets. The Magic tried to build around him as much as they could. They put pieces around him. Like I always say, hypothetical scenario. If you put Jokic on that Magic squad, you think that Magic team will still win a championship or not? You put Shaq in the twisted universe, you put Jokic on that Magic team, and you put Shaq on today's Nuggets team. Which do you think would win a championship first? Me personally, when I look at Jokic's game, it reminds me a lot of some of Manu Ginobili and somewhat Dirk Nowitzki game. Like the dude can move without the ball. The dude can move with the ball. That's something that Shaq failed to do in his career. I think he tried it a little bit in Orlando, but a big guy running with the ball in his hands wasn't an ideal situation. If you want to look at their strengths, their weaknesses, I don't think Jokic have a weakness. We all know Shaq has a weakness. He can't shoot from 20 feet from the rim. He uses his power to intimidate people. He doesn't have any post moves that I can remember. Just backing down, 2 dribbles, 1 dribble, sky hook off the backboard. You just have to look at it as a whole. I know a lot of people are gonna say, hey, well, Prime Shaq was good. He was grabbing you 40, 10, 6 blocks. What did he do after he left? You know what I'm saying? What did he do after he left LA? One more chip with Miami, and then after that he just went from team to team, collecting checks until his body finally gave out on him. His last team that he's with was Boston, and he's coming off the bench. Like when Kobe said that his work ethic is questionable, Kobe wasn't lying. I think that's why the Lakers chose to build around Kobe instead of Shaq, because they knew Shaq in the long haul was going to break down, and eventually he did. He just wrote a very good Miami Heat team that was already loaded. Still had Alonzo Mourning, still had some very good pieces around Dwayne Wade. How good was Shaq really? Nobody can say. Nobody can really say how good was Shaq. We only saw him for a good 3 years in LA, and then he dipped. Not really did, but LA didn't want to re-sign him, so he went to the Heat, won his last championship, and then he just bounced around the league. Um, Now, Jokic, obviously, um, Jokic, they surrounded Jokic with talent that he needed to win. Like, the Magic did what the Nuggets should have done. You know, I mean, the Magic was just signing bad players around Shaq. You know, you had a hobbled, injury-prone point guard, Penny Hardaway. You had Dennis Scott. I mean, people can say all the poo-poo they want to, but you know, the facts are facts. The Magic was never going to win the championship with Shaq. You know, and LA did have a questionable path to the NBA Finals. You know, I mean, if you look at their opponents, the Nets, Sixers. I mean, first of all, I don't know how the Nets made it to the finals that year, and I think that was their last finals appearance. And then you had the Sixers, who was obviously the biggest underdog. You know, they won game one, and then after that, the Lakers just steamrolled them. And then you had the Pistons, who defensively just shut down the whole entire Lakers squad. I mean, with that defense, it was looking like the bad boys Pistons all over again. Now, Jokic did have his flaws in the playoffs, obviously the bubble, and, you know, like 2 years later, you know, he went back, beat the Lakers, and then obviously won his first championship. And hopefully many more to come. But they got to get rid of Russell Westbrook. I think he's just not what they're looking for. I don't know why they I don't know why they signed him in the first place, but you know, it is what it is. But yeah, but I'm gonna take Jokic in this one. It's not been close, and I know a lot of people are gonna say, well, you know, well you gonna say what exactly? You know, like, and don't get me wrong, Shaq was a very dominant big man. You know, I'm not gonna take anything away from him, but I've never seen anybody play like Jokic. Like, as good as Dirk was, Dirk needed the ball in his hands a lot to be effective. Manu Ginobili I'll probably say he was probably the closest I've seen of Jokic. You know, but you know, there's not a lot of big skill men out there anymore. You know, I think, you know, outside of Giannis, Jokic, obviously, Joel Embiid, even though I hate his guts, he's, you know, still one of the top 20, 15 best players in the NBA. I'm not even gonna say when healthy, because his ass is never healthy, so that's here or there. But, I just think, you know, Jokic, today's Jokic, not 2018 Jokic, but today's Jokic, I know for a fact that he would beat Shaq. It's not even close. Like, Jokic would shoot rings around him like Sonic. Like, it's not even close. Because the first thing you do as a big guy is you want Shaq to come out his comfort zone. Because the only way he's comfortable is inside the paint. We all know Shaq is not going to shoot jumpers. We all know that. So the only reliable resource that he has is to back you down You know what I'm saying? And just use his brute force. That's about it. He's gonna get tired, right? Because I don't know how long. I mean, they could go to 15 games, 10 games, 21 games. He's going to get fatigued and tired. Jokic don't tire himself out. I don't know what he be doing. I don't know what he trains, how he trains, or I don't even think he trains at all. But he just doesn't get tired. Shaq gets tired. Trust me, he gets tired. You know, I mean, he may not have gotten tired his Orlando Magic days, but when he cut down to like 310, because he was like 325 or 330 in Orlando, he cut down. He was somewhat movable. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that he had cement feet, but you know, he was very skilled for a big guy his size. But I mean, the only way we could sell this is in the video game, right? Because obviously they can't go head to head in the ultimate universe. They can't go head to head. So we can sell this on 2K, not on my 2K, obviously. 2K24, yeah, 2K24 with Kobe on the cover. So yeah, we're gonna sell this debate. I'm just gonna put it at 15. I'm not gonna go. I mean, I could go to 21. If y'all want me to go to 21, just let me know in the comment section down below. But I'm just gonna do a little easy 15 game and see where it is. So like, comment, subscribe. Yeah. It's not a debate, you know, because I was on Gmo. If you don't know Gmo, he's a New York Knicks fan, or he's a New York Knicks content creator. And I asked him, like, 0-1 Shaq versus today's Jokic. He just continued to say Shaq. And I get it. You know, he probably grew up with Shaq. He probably grew up watching Shaq, which we all did, you know. But Jokic is just, like, he's no pushover, you know. Like, he could do 10 things. He could do 10 times the work Shaq couldn't do. You know, Shaq was never a big skill guy. You know, he wasn't like Hakeem, you know, or Wilt. You know, he was none of those guys. He uses his brute force. He uses his muscles, his power to, you know, embarrass you. You know, like that's why when people say Shaq is the most dominant, they never said Shaq was the most skilled. Two different things. You know, dominant and skill are two different things. You know, but you know, but like I said, Jokic would probably bring Shaq out of his comfort zone, hit him with a little pump fake, shoot a few middies, shoot a few threes. Shaq would get tired. You know what I'm saying? And it'll be over. And the sad part is, Shaq said that the guy, because they do TNT Tuesday, whatever, and then the white dude asked Shaq, you with the Lakers or you versus you with the Lakers versus Jokic, and he said Siberian chicken, something like that. And, you know, Candace Parker had to correct him, you know, because it was funny. But now if the guy would have said Wilt Chamberlain, Shaq would have said, um, he wouldn't even hesitate because Shaq is a nitpick. He, the thing with Shaq is he gets sensitive. So whenever you put him up against somebody that he knows he can dominate, and Jokic is no small person. You know, I mean, I think they both the same height, same size. Like Jokic can hold his own. You know, Jokic is no slouch. I don't know why people think Jokic is just some pushover. You know, I've watched his game. You know, um, he's no pushover. You know, um, but the thing is, people are going to people are going to say Shaq because for one, Shaq was just completely impenetrable in the post. You know, I mean, I think that's the only logic that they could come up with. Like if Shaq gets you in the post, it's over. You know what I'm saying? And you know, I would probably say, okay, how would Shaq defend Jokic three? How would Shaq defend Jokic mid range? Because Shaq wasn't the best at moving his feet very well. You know. Um, and I'll say something, negative about Jokic as well. The thing is, I can't find anything. I don't know what's his weakness. I don't know what his weakness is, but yeah, the dude who came overseas, who went overseas, didn't even play a lick of basketball in the United States. You know, he said that when my career is done, I don't want to be remembered. You know what I'm saying? I just want to, go back to my homeland and, live at peace. And I respect that. You know what I'm saying? Because he didn't grow up in this American lifestyle. You know, like if he grew up in this American lifestyle, he would be Johnny Manziel. That's who Jokic would have been if he would have lived, if he would have experienced and lived this American lifestyle. He would have been Johnny Manziel. You know Johnny Manziel? Yeah, he was doing all this in freaking college, and when as soon as these guys went to the NFL, they roasted him. They did the money sign every time. They sacked him, intercepted him. Like his career is over before you know it. And it was sad because he had such a great college career, you know. Y'all just have to look at Johnny Manziel. Y'all understand what I'm talking about. But, I mean, he's very humble, Jokic is very humble, and, he just doesn't care about his life. He really don't, And I'm the same way, too. Like, yeah, I don't care how many subscribers I got, man. I just, post, I'm not in it for the money, you know. I just do it because I love to do it. There's really no question on why I do it. I mean, there's no question on why anybody does YouTube. You just sitting in front of the camera for 4, 5, 6 hours recording whatever you like to do. People gravitate towards you. But Shaq doesn't get it because he's always he be in his head too much. Like he thinks that nobody can stop him. Okay, you let Yao Ming own you. Okay, Yao Ming was probably the last person that actually owned you. And you said it out your mouth. Like you said, Yao Ming is the biggest, the best big man I've ever played with or played against. And then I think this was like his Hall of Fame speech, you know, because if you go back and look at the matchups, Yao Ming dominated Shaq like I've never seen anybody dominate Shaq. Now you could say the same thing for AD versus Jokic or Dwight Howard versus Jokic. You know. But anyways, man, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know who y'all got. LA Shaq or current Jokic. Who wins the 1-on-1 game 21?